1,000 Israelis gathered to demonstrate against war with Iran on Saturday in the latest display of the citizenry's opposition to threats of a military strike. The Jerusalem Post reports that the group made their way through central Tel Aviv while chanting peace slogans, singing traditional Israeli peace songs, and other love and peace-themed tunes by the Beatles and John Lennon. Also notable were signs carried by a number of marchers expressing strong opposition to the American pro-Israel lobby AIPAC. Organizers coordinated the rally through a Facebook page entitled Israelis Against the War and stated, quote, "We will not agree to an irresponsible Israeli attack on Iran, leading to a war with an unknown end date and casualty count. The billions that this war will cost will be paid by us in health, education, housing, and in blood," end quote. Sound familiar? Some marchers also stressed that they were opposed to the presence of nuclear weapons anywhere in the region, saying, quote, "We must disarm all of the Middle East from nuclear weapons, Israel included." It's 1 minute past the hour. In horrifying local news, a woman in the San Diego area community of El Cajon has died after being brutally beaten in her own home, apparently because she was Iraqi. Shaima Alawati was found last Wednesday in a pool of her own blood next to a handwritten note which read, quote, "Go back to your own country, you're a terrorist," end quote. The LA Times reports that Alawati was taken off life support on Saturday and died shortly thereafter. The woman's family told police that they had previously received similarly threatening anonymous correspondence, but had dismissed that first instance as a prank. The UK Guardian reports that, ironically, Alawati's husband, Al-Hamidi, works as a cultural advisor, helping U.S. soldiers prepare for deployment to the Middle East. It's 2 minutes past the hour. And finally, 2 NATO soldiers were shot dead in Afghanistan's Helmand province today in what is believed to be another retaliatory move for the massacre of 16 Afghan civilians earlier this month. Yahoo News reports that this morning shooter was dressed in an Afghan military uniform, and the NATO soldiers whose lives he claimed were reportedly British. Meanwhile, Carolyn Bales, the wife of the U.S. military staff sergeant accused in the civilian killings, appeared this morning on NBC's Today Show to express her disbelief that her husband could have committed the mass murders of a group comprised mainly of young children. Bales said, quote, "I have no idea what happened, but he would not. He loves children, and he would not do that," end quote. Staff Sergeant Robert Bales is accused of killing 9 children and 7 adults, one of whom was pregnant, in the pre-dawn hours of March 11th. Many observers have expressed skepticism that the lone soldier could have managed to leave his base in Kandahar province twice in one evening without being noticed, and several Afghan witnesses to the crimes report seeing multiple U.S. military assailants. For Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7, I'm Mercy Malik. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheActualMercy, and this has been your Reality Check.
For details on all these stories and more, go to INNWorldReport.net.
Smart starts now. GoHarrison.com.
What's new about Tiger Woods?
Michael Jackson.
Elvis Presley.
O.J. Simpson. Abandoned babies.
Harrison.
Talk show. Random. Political.
Outrageous.
Philosophical.
Analytical.
Passionate. Hidden. Sunsets.
Roadkill cooking tips.
Open-minded.
Swordsman.
Bent.
Resolute.
Chocolate.
Bushwhacker.
Belt buckles.
Investigative.
Companion.
Fearless.
Call in.
Piercing the cloud of mainstream entertainment. From Los Angeles, it's The Smart Show with Harrison.
4 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome and happy Monday to you. Happy if you're not wearing a hoodie today. I certainly recommend against that unless you want to, suffer the unfortunate problems that go along with that. Our guest, whom I will introduce in just a moment, has put his hoodie up. Unbeknownst to him, perhaps, and it's possible that he even bought a piece of clothing, this ultimate cloak of sartorial splendor, before it became so controversial. We're going to find that out in just a moment. Sit there in your hoodie and just know my right to stand my ground, even though I'm sitting, is still as confusing as it was a year ago. Harrison, with you, I want to open up the phones a little later and talk about Trayvon Martin, talk about having lived in Florida myself and having recalled the great moment that it was decided that you could walk around with a shotgun on your hip or a handgun, excuse me, but in 7-Elevens you were required to check them at the door. Check your handgun at the door was the sign, kind of like the Old West. But unlike the Old West, where people still had rudimentary educations and no electric chair was invented yet, it might have been slightly different. There were actual sheriffs then but it doesn't matter. This is the way it works. I was in a Starbucks this afternoon, and there was a sewer worker there because of the rains, and he was working on some of the overflow water here in West Hollywood, where we are coming to you live from Marilyn Monroe's former partner? Boy, that'd be a long list. Former apartment right now, and relevant it will be, our guest, whom I will introduce in just a moment. But this water worker was dressed in a bright yellow slicker and a hoodie. And I went up to him. I said, "Do you realize that according to Geraldo Rivera and the TV set, Fox News, you are a gangsta?" And he gulped and gaped and said, and that was the end of that. So,
Ragafrassen.
Yeah, Rassafrassa. So apparently he doesn't believe that, even though he's wearing the hoodie. So a lot of people wearing hoodies don't know that according to the television set, they're actually gangsters out looking to take other people's lives, rob cars, steal children, empty wallets, etc., etc. We're going to get into that today. We're going to hear your voices. But first, I want to have a little enlightenment fun, because one of the things that we love to do here is talk about that intersection of art and real life. And who better than those who've actually arted and real life at the same time. And those are many of our Hollywood friends. Now, if you're, say, over the age of 40, you probably will have seen a show called My Three Sons. It starred Fred McMurray and also starred Barry Livingston, who played Ernie. And you grew up with this. This was, in fact, your parents and family. And I'll say that again. Many of us, this is pre-latchkey, turnkey, door key, whatever key it is. Dorky, yeah. Dorky, period. Dorky might be appropriate there, too, for you, Barry, in the role that you played.
Yeah, nerdy, dorky, geeky, all those.
You were the original nerd.
I think I can wear that banner pretty honestly. I think that there was maybe, if you go way back to like our gang or something like that, there was probably Porky or one of the other Alfalfa or something like that who were pretty nerdy. But I think on television, I maybe was one of the first.
Now back, this is the 1960s, am I right?
Right.
In the 1960s, being a nerd was not like today. Today, they hire you at Best Buy, pay you a living wage, and give you health benefits because you're a nerd.
Right.
Or a geek. Even worse then. A geek was worse than a nerd. But now you get courted by the Apple Corporation for your nerdliness.
Yeah, well, it was, nerdiness went hand in hand with intelligence, but intelligence to maybe to the point of obnoxiousness, that you'd flaunt it, or you were completely oblivious to it, that you'd be in science class and know the periodic tables, forward and backwards. So that was the kind of thing that the jocks would sit there and go, well, what a weird guy that is, and awkward with the girls. So. Those were, but today, that's, I don't know.
Today
it's
you're
the big thing,
not as awkward with the girls? Mercy Malik,
yes,
right behind me, whom you can see
probably,
in
yes,
pulchritude and beauty. She wants to know. She tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Please ask."
I see a very pretty girl behind me, and yes, I do get awkward and probably not me. It takes a day or two to come out when I still. And you meet a pretty girl. It's not like some people just have the smooth lines right at the tip of their tongue. No, that was never me. Probably will never be me.
But the tip of the tongue can be a smooth line.
I'm not even going to go there.
I certainly wouldn't either. And I know nothing about it. It just came out, and it was not a Freudian slip.
So to speak.
Just the whole dress, not a slip.
A lot of slipping and
just
tips. Okay. Yeah.
We're talking to Barry Livingston. You know him from My Three Sons. His father was famously Fred McMurray, whom we also saw in all the Disney movies, right?
Correct.
Son of Flubber, et cetera, et cetera. You're also now in Mad Men, one of my absolute favorite shows.
Yeah, I did an episode of Mad Men. I think maybe my connection to that show is perhaps a little exaggerated. I've been in a lot of other shows too, but I was in the very first season in Mad Men. Unfortunately, the art department, of which I was one of the guys in the art department, when they transferred to the new company who bought Sterling Cooper or
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
They fired the art department. So that guy was cut loose. But I've big love. I mean, I've done
You've
just
been
about
on pretty
every.
much every show on television.
I think in the last 10 years, I've been on Desperate Housewives and Grey's Anatomy and Two and a Half Men. I just did a Revenge. I did an episode of Suburgatory not too long ago. Castle. I've done a lot.
Well, and this brings us to the book that you've written, which is called The Importance of Being Ernie, not to be confused with the other one that we
Right.
all read in 8th grade.
I'm so afraid that Oscar Wilde's book sales are just skyrocketing now because people
Well,
go,
listen.
Importance of Being, what was it again? Earnest? Yeah, okay, that's it. And, there you go.
Posthumously is about the best way he was ever appreciated, it seemed. Certainly spending his life in the hoosegow for buggery,
Yeah.
which was on CBS News the other night. I couldn't believe this. An Atlantis cruise,
Yeah.
a cruise ship for gay people,
Yeah.
went out full of thousands of people, and apparently, somehow, in a porthole, two people,
So to speak.
Okay.
two
yeah.
people engaged in buggery.
Through a
This is
porthole?
according to CBS, who could barely pronounce the
Astonishing.
word, can even get a sentence together. It's television news. It's about, as Gore Vidal told us here on the show a couple of years ago, it's really about hair and makeup, right? So the guy is standing there with a very straight expression saying, well, they were engaged in buggery. And in a porthole. Now, I don't know about you, but let's just take the heterosexual inverse of that. Try doing that in a porthole. Is she having a good time? Can you do this efficiently?
Depends on the portal.
When was the last time you were on a cruise? You hate cruise ships, honey.
I hate boats. Yeah,
You hate boats.
I do.
A porthole
But how
is...
about sailors?
Sailors.
But a porthole is the size of a large dinner plate. and if you are
portal.
the Dominican police standing 3,000 feet down
it's a glory porthole.
on the I mean, come on, right? Ridiculous.
There wasn't a manhole.
Well, it was a
Definitely
manhole. I guess that's where the law was broken.
Where has this conversation gone? Fred McMurray is spinning in his grave right now.
You, my friend, brought up Oscar Wilde. I was
I
sitting
didn't bring
here.
up portholes.
I was sitting here massaging my Bible.
We don't know what you're.
And
We don't know what
watching
you're
it
massaging.
turgidify.
No, you say you're massaging your Bible, but
We are now
massaging
seeing
something
a
else.
new side of Barry Livingston, the man who is the nerd, the man who is bashful in front of women. Methinks there is a full human living in there.
I think so.
And
somewhere.
that's what your book talks about. You talk about surviving in Hollywood. You talk about all the monkey shines and shenanigans that so many actors went through. Drugs,
Sure.
booze,
Sure.
sex with a capital S,
Sure.
buggery,
no,
I suppose.
No portholes. So.
No portals. But you seem to avoid, hanging out of a window with a syringe dangling out of your veins.
Guilty as charged. I mean, I
Right, and only here is that a bad thing.
You got a lot of
You're
living
right.
to do.
That's me.
I got lots
I
of
screwed up.
Lots of splaining to do. I just did what everyone else in the 70s and 80s was doing, which was partying to excess. And, I did it to the point of which, I never crashed my car, never hurt anybody, never, if anything, was hurting myself. And at some point I just went, okay, I'm done.
Well,
Did
then you
that.
weren't doing what everyone else was doing, apparently, because you escaped.
Yeah, the 70s is a vague teenage. Vague. I remember something called Meisterbrow.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was-
Well,
it was-
Mickey's big mouth, whatever it was.
Nice.
Meisterbrow was $1.99 a six-pack.
Yeah,
and
no-
that was right in my budget.
Right. Old English 800. That was,
Yeah,
was
Oh, you went for the good stuff.
if you wanted to really get
Now,
down.
if you really wanted to have fun, what you drank was the is it Mad Dog?
Mad
no,
Dog.
Yeah,
not really.
2020.
Fortified with meat.
Oh.
Now, when you have to fortify wine with meat, is because you actually expect, as the distiller, that it is a primary food source for your customer.
Wow.
Main source
Yeah.
of sustenance.
I didn't do that route, but I'm just letting you know for that day, if your appetite reemerges and your budget is appropriate, a good fit for that. There is a food. It's meat.
Wow. A half an
Spam.
hour earlier, and what I thought we'd be talking about, never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd be talking about putting meat and beer and
I like
portholes.
to keep you on
and-
your toes.
I love it. It's good. Let's keep going. It's fun.
We're talking to Barry Livingston. You know him from My Three Sons. He played Ernie, the lead character there. His father was Fred McMurray. Your Uncle Charlie, was William Frawley, also known as Fred Mertz. And you, I mean, you've met all these guys, Desi, Lucy.
You're kind of merging a couple of characters together, which is okay, because in my mind, everything's all merged together, too. Uncle Charlie was William Demers. William Frawley played Bub.
Thank you.
Who William Frawley, we just had the honor of inducting him and Vivian Vance
last week, right?
Into the Television Hall of Fame. Yeah, it was good.
How did they feel about that? Never mind. That was
long,
a bad
long
taste.
big sigh. No, the funny thing was that Vivian Vance's sister got up. I forget her name. Because she's probably the only Vance that's still alive. And, and she, drove in from Laughlin or something like that. And she did one of those, what do they call it? And you get up in Congress and filibustered. And went on and on and on and on, and even said she was wearing Navajo turquoise jewelry in honor of Viv, and the jewelry's for sale, as a matter of fact. And it was crazy. So, if she, maybe Vivian was speaking through her sister, because it really went on forever.
No doubt, right?
With no point at all. It always helps to have a point. At the end of your story, there was no point. It just a lot of rambling.
Coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to be getting live and local traffic with Jeff Thomas. We're talking to Barry Livingston of My Three Sons. He played Ernie.
He can't even get it out.
I know, I can't get it out. And I took up smoking this morning. I really probably ought to quit. We're talking about not only his survival through Hollywood, growing up here as an Angelino, and somehow not ending up the dead one or the crazy one. And he's here to witness that struggle, or lack of struggle, or combination of struggle and not struggle, in his book called The Importance of Being Ernie, From My Three Sons to Mad Men, A Hollywood Survivor Tells All. And that's what he's doing. We're going to segue, a new word, into Trayvon Martin soon enough. And I want to just talk about institutionalized racism and how this has become so normal that, why even really bother investigating this? Who cares kind of thing. And what your feelings are, because right now we're having apparently a million hoodie march here in L.A., I don't know that a million will show up. We should certainly hope so. There was one in New York just some days ago. And these are regular people like you and me who are truly outraged by this knuckle-walking, hispidulite, redneck madness that goes on in Sanford, Florida. And I've been to Sanford, Florida. It's right next to Disney. And part of Disney is a city called Celebration. And Celebration is Disney's fundamentalist Christian city. And one of the issues when they were building Celebration, I remember covering this because I was I was the news director on a rock station, 98 Rock, where it was black pick-em-up trucks, rebel flags, and shotguns in the back window, my audience. And I remember talking about Celebration and saying, calling them up on the air and saying, so where's the mosque? Well, there isn't one, sir. Okay, how about the temple? For the Jewish people, well, there really isn't one. But there's 4 churches, 2 Southern Baptist ones, an Episcopal, and something else. I said, well, then there's the other humans on Earth, like lots, right? Who probably would love to live the Disney magic. Well, I'm sure there are, and there's plenty of places of faith for them. Oh, right? So this is that area. Let's also remember, very vitally, 20 minutes from Sanford, Florida, is the Ku Klux Klan capital of the state of Florida, Lakeland, Florida, between Tampa, where the Republican convention is happening in August, and Disney, where the mouse dresses as a rat and buggers people in a porthole, or something like that. I'm still trying to understand, but thank God for CBS, or I really wouldn't know a porthole from a swinging water door. Let's go to traffic with Jeff Thomas. Or not. All right, let's not go to traffic with Jeff Thomas. Harrison with you. We are talking to Barry Livingston. He is the My Three Sons star, known very well as Barry at the time. I mean, Barry is your first name. Ernie or Barry.
Barry, Ernie, hey you, hey sailor, whatever.
Hey sailor. Now, tell tell us a little bit about Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball, and all of that. We know them because of the surrogacy that they offered as parents.
Right.
The model house that you grew up in, Barry, was the house that we were told, sort of officially, is what an American family ought to look like.
Be, yeah.
Yeah, like Leave It to Beaver. If your mother is not vacuuming in pumps,
Yeah.
she sucks.
Well, we would have had to have Uncle Charlie vacuuming pumps. In
Did
our
he ever
show.
want to?
We never really knew what was behind that apron. I don't know. We never looked. But, that was actually My Three Sons, in its day was a groundbreaking show in that it really was a single parent.
Yeah.
It was getting away from the Donna Reed, Father Knows Best, the epitome of what the American family should be. We didn't do it all, and the family did because
Yeah.
the storylines didn't go there. But it really was supposed to be a house in disarray. One of the novel parts of the show in My Three Sons was it was an all male household. So there wasn't, it was a cliche, but there wasn't a woman in the house. So there was, chaos, which that it was controlled chaos for television. But still, it was, the idea was there, you'd see people doing laundry. You'd see kids, having to do the dishes. Uncle Charlie darning socks or something like that. Like if anybody ever darned socks, but
I damn socks, and when they get old, I throw them out.
well, it was the censors were a little too rough. We had to darn socks, and nobody damned them those days.
Now, let me ask you an obvious and relevant question. We're told. Did you hear that, Mr. Haney, in my voice? We're told. We're told that in the 1950s, it was the McCarthy era. There was extraordinary discipline in an official public way. But then you had Marilyn Monroe, whose apartment we're sitting in right now. You may, my friend, Barry Livingston, you may, in fact, your elbow was touching that piece of wood over there. She may have leaned and passed out against that piece of wood
little
once.
DNA over here, perhaps?
That might have been her magic porthole right there.
What are portals again?
Whatever
Good.
knows.
Another portal? Or
Look at him light up.
Ooh.
It's
Well,
like
I'm feeling it.
It's
man.
like we had
I'm
Ed
feeling it
Asner
right
was in
now.
here sitting in that spot last week.
Who
and
was?
Ed Asner.
Okay.
And was
Well, I
like
take my hand off that.
rubbing. Well, but when they start to sort of remember where they are, they get this like childlike glow.
Yeah.
And you have that going on right now too.
Well, had you said it was Slim Pickens' apartment, I'd
That's
probably
hot.
I'd be pretty hot about that too. But because I like all good actors.
So let's talk about the kind of political structure of the time, and then we'll open up the phones and we'll get to
Great.
relevant topics for today.
Love it.
Back then, we're told it was the McCarthy era. Well, we know it was the McCarthy era.
Mm-hmm.
We know the commies were under every bed. Every bed. There wasn't a single bed in the United States, even if you lived in a cardboard box, that did not have a commie living under it. By God, it's official. The government, G-U-B-M-I-N-T, the government said so. Therefore, it's true because government doesn't lie. Or government don't lie. So, that said, we had simultaneous to that, on the big screen, Marilyn Monroe cleaving with this great adipose tissue bouncing in slow motion. You can almost see the areola slipping under the brassiere.
Adipose.
Yes.
Areola.
Yes.
These are
I'm keeping it so clinical.
It's so good.
This is not meant to be
Turning me
erotic.
on, but this
and
areola talk.
the fan blades under her silken, peach-colored chiffon dress, blowing it up to reveal her beautiful striated thighs as she
Oh.
puts a pointed toe
Where did
forward.
you put her? Where was her?
I hope a few listeners are just turning in right now.
Yeah. Well, they're going. Is he talking
Just-
about My Three Sons?
Exactly.
So it's and I love to find what's real based on counterpoint.
Sure.
Is that while all this repression is going on, the images with all the censorship are really intense. I mean, she had to be really intense relative to the amount of censorship.
Yeah, well, she, would have to ask John Kennedy about that because, he certainly succumbed to her charms, and it was the hypocrisy of that era, was pretty rampant, and I think that's what, you saw that. Elvis was highly sexually charged on stage, and that was kids got it.
Yeah.
Adults were threatened by it.
Yeah.
Certainly, Marilyn Monroe on the other side was, an incredibly amazing woman, But, preceding her, there was Ava Gardner's and Rita Hayworth's. Maybe they weren't quite so open with their cleavage, but it was that that breaking apart of that whole era was just slowly, the fissures in that lie were just so apparent. The whole repressed part of the 50s, that you were getting Marlon Brandos and Marilyn Monroes who they were just, you could see they were just sexually charged people.
Well,
and Uncle Charlie was an amazingly virile septuagenarian,
Really?
I mean, you couldn't, didn't you get that?
William
vibe?
Demarest?
Oh my God, you just saw the testosterone flowing through the guy, and he was a sexual animal. I mean, I got that from day one from Uncle Charlie. You never.
What are you saying?
I'm
Really?
saying he was quite a guy. You never figured that one out. Huh?
I never did, but you heard it here first. 25 minutes, make that 26 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. We are streaming live video at goharrison.com here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California. We're talking to Barry Livingston of My Three Sons. He played Ernie, and his book is called The Importance of Being Ernie, not to mix the metaphor inappropriately with Oscar Wilde, although it is a wild book to be sure. From My Three Sons to Mad Men, a Hollywood survivor tells all. And we're getting inside of the mindset of a guy who was actually there, actually lived the way that you and I were taught. If we grew up in that era, we were taught the way we should act. And before we go to news at the bottom of the hour with Mercy Malik, I remember I was talking to June Lockhart, who played everybody's mother in Lassie and Lost in Space, and I asked her about Dr. Smith. I said, no, was it me? Is it just me? Or what were you thinking? And she said, Guy Williams, because Lost in Space was actually created by Irwin Allen, the famous producer of 20th Century Fox, as a vehicle for Guy Williams, because he had been Zorro in black and white.
Right.
So they wanted to create this outer space swashbuckling thing for Guy Williams. Well, after the 5th episode, it's like, Guy who?
Yeah.
And suddenly you have this nobody who invented the first special guest star thing.
Right.
And it was just because they needed to figure out something from it. It wasn't a special thing for him. It was like, we don't want to give him a full credit, so we'll just give him special guest star, right? Well, of course, that turned into a valuable property nowadays in your credit roll. And what happened was, I think Irwin Allen got burnt out trying to keep this guy under a whip in a chair. And, he would sit and read Othello from Shakespeare, Jonathan Harris, and start, you bubble-headed booby, and how dare... It's all Shakespeare.
Yeah.
In the middle of this ridiculous thing, and it changed kind of that vibe, too, into something new.
It took it into some comedic realm. I mean, I think the original thrust of the show was it was some kind of an outer space, family in outer space. But then out of nowhere came this vaguely gay professor who was like from Oxford.
KGB.
It was like Oscar Wilde,
Yes.
suddenly like an outer space. And he and the little boy, Bill Mooney, and the robot, you went, what happened? I missed the last part of episode, season 2, where suddenly the show became about this guy, and he was the most treacherous, conniving old man, too, in addition to everything, his whole veneer of whatever it was. I don't know what
I remember the seminal event, so to speak, and pronounced correctly. The seminal event was when, and it was still a black and white first season, and Mrs. Robinson, June Lockhart, everybody's mother from Lassie and everything, right? She says, you know what, Dr. Smith, because she always would roll over for him. You are part of the family. They always rescued him. He would try to kill them, and they would always rescue him, right? Rescue the villain.
Yeah.
She said, you really are part of the family now. I have taken the last surviving uniform, and I have re-sewn it so it will fit you. This makes you part of the space family, Robinson. Here you are. And suddenly, he holds it up in the air, he flaps it like a sail, and says, this? How dare you, madam? Don't you know anything about the width and breadth of a man's shoulders? Throws it into the dirt, grinds it in, and says, I'm off to my cabin for a nap. And that was the end of that.
And they called My Three Sons unreal. Yeah, really. No, there was a lot going on in television. In fact, in my show, not the segue because it's fascinating. We can talk about Lost in Space all day if you want. But I always felt like the poster boy for the establishment because I'm a pretty intelligent, savvy person, even then. And I went, And of course, you couldn't miss it because the world was changing so radically with
Sure.
the Beatles and the Stones and
Sure.
the pill and everything. But they were
The
hanging,
pill?
Well,
Oh,
I
the
did
birth
take
control
it.
pill.
Yeah, that pill. Yeah,
Yes.
not Viagra or anything.
Okay, well,
K30 just
Funny,
check
I
it.
have bottom of the hour news on both of those items. Foreshadowing.
But I just, I sensed that how stupid it was because I'd go back to school.
Yeah.
And in school, everyone was, suddenly really into the Beatles, really into drugs, pot, and then you'd go back and you'd be, you'd be this throwback to the 1950s, but some kind of fake, the ideal boy of the 1950s, which that was not a reality. And, and then of course people are going, well, you're selling this lie that nobody can ever live up to that kind of, this example that you're setting that we should be this perfect all the time. And of course, and I was going, well, in my real life, trust me, I'm not that perfect,
And that's...
I'm striving not to be perfect.
That's in your book. The Importance
yeah.
of Being Ernie, From My Three Sons to Mad Men, a Hollywood survivor tells all. We're going to open up the phone lines, and we're going to talk about current events with Barry Livingston. I want to talk a little bit about Trayvon and what has gone on in Florida and how the television set vis-a-vis Fox News has declared that if you wear a hoodie, as Barry Livingston himself is wearing a hoodie today, unbeknownst to him, according to Geraldo Rivera, you, sir, are a gangster and are looking to rob us here in Marilyn Monroe's former apartment, steal our wallets, and possibly bugger the pooch. My little 7-pound chihuahua snarling in the corner with foam coming out of his little tiny furry mouth. We'll find out how true that is after live news with Mercy Malik. That would be a slow and gentle segue into Mercy's sounder.
Are you ready?
Which goes
Just want to give you all time
like
to prep
this.
for the news.
Harrison. News update.
You're listening to Go Harrison, and I'm Mercy Malik with your reality check. Let's open with yet more appalling news regarding access to birth control. Do pharmacists want teens to get pregnant? It appears that some do. According to a study to be published in the April issue of Pediatrics, researchers posing as 17-year-old girls seeking the morning after pill were told by pharmacists in nearly 1 out of 5 instances that it was, quote, impossible for girls their age to receive emergency contraception. Is that true? Why, no, not at all. U.S. federal regulations stipulate that females age 17 and older may purchase the morning after pill over the counter with proof of age, and that girls age 16 and under can do so with a doctor's prescription. Lead study author Dr. Tracy Wilkinson, a general pediatrics fellow at Boston University School of Medicine and Boston Medical Center, said, quote, what we found was that emergency contraception was pretty available in that 80% had it on the shelf that day. However, when teenagers asked if they could get the medicine, they were told they couldn't get it at all. Not with the prescription, not over the counter, just simply based on their age, end quote. When researchers called the same pharmacies again, but instead identified themselves as physicians, they were given the correct information in all but 3% of the cases, leaving a 17% instance of pharmacists just plain lying in order to deprive teens of emergency contraception. Well, that's heartening. It's 33 minutes past the hour. And now for something rare, some encouraging environmental news. Popular Science reports that an Amazonian fungus may spell the end to the planet's crippling landfill woes by eating plastic. That's right.
What?
That's what.
What?
Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, say it again.
I think I need to say it again.
Yeah. I have to pull the Q-tip out.
Amazonian fungus. That sounds bad, but this is what it does.
It is bad.
It eats plastic.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's
another good reason to build a new deck.
Start eating people after that.
Amazonian plastic is made out of people.
Wow.
Okay, back to the actual news.
Seriously.
A group of Yale University students on an expedition to Ecuador identified the fungus, which is reportedly capable of breaking down polyurethane. That particular form of plastic shows up in a preponderance of flexible products and up until now is believed to be nearly indestructible. The only previously known method of breakdown was through burning, a process not viable due to highly toxic chemicals released into the air as a byproduct. So, welcome. Pastillotopiosis microspora. Wow. Say that 5 times. The fungus that just might save us all.
Wow. Good. Wow. I have a friend who has a fungus that is not saving him.
It's 34 minutes past the hour. And finally, the latest installment of absolutely ridiculous bills in American state legislatures. Now, it's worth mentioning that sometimes the ridiculous bills are meant to be ridiculous and are proposed for exactly that reason. Take, for example, the case of Democratic Pennsylvania State Senator Larry Farnese, who says he intends to introduce a bill requiring mandatory cardio stress tests and prostate exams for men seeking treatment for erectile dysfunction. The Associated Press reports that Senator Farnese devised the bill in response to pending Pennsylvania legislation which aims to force all women seeking abortions to undergo mandatory ultrasounds. Farnese's legislation would force men seeking drugs to combat ED to also receive sex therapy, as well as watch a video depicting the dangers of ED medication. Perhaps most notably, the man's partner would need to sign an affidavit confirming that the treatment seeker did indeed suffer from a limp member. Farnese says his true goal is to show that the ultrasound bill is, in fact, ridiculous. For Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, 98.7 Santa Barbara, 93.7 San Diego, and 99.5 Ridgecrest China Lake, I'm Mercy Malik. You can be my friend on Facebook and send me news tips for your reality check.
News update. Harrison. The Smart Show.
Completely unsponsored, common sense commuter traffic.
Jeff, you're up. Go.
37 minutes past the hour. This is your Go Harrison live and local traffic report.
Are you on a paper cup and a string?
Speak up, young man.
Sorry?
Are you on a paper cup and a string?
Close, I'm telling you. Okay, let's just get started here. There's a couple areolas that you're going to want to stay away from. Let's start in Long Beach on the 91 West.
Okay.
At Lakewood Avenue, there's a car blocking the left lane. It's going to be slow traffic there. In Pico Rivera, the 605 South at Beverly, the number 1 and the number 2 lanes are blocked, and that is going to be slow. That's going to be slow. Yeah.
Is he on a mountaintop with binoculars?
Hey, doing this on the fly! 605 North at Boston, there's another accident that's going to be really slow all the way to Rose Hills Drive. Finally, on the 405 North, it's going to be stop and go traffic from National to Sunset Boulevard. Other than that, everything looks good. The Inland Empire looks very good. Orange County looks good. For Harrison, I'm Jeffrey Thomas on KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara.
The Smart Show.
Commuter traffic.
Why don't you look me up?
And it is 38 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome to Go Harrison. We are streaming live video right now at goharrison.com. We're also going to be opening up the phone lines and talk about current events relevant to you. And as always, bring in an artist to offer what he sees through the lens of an artist. That's always that wonderful intersection between art and reality. And they do blend often, and I love perspective of smart people. We're talking right now to Barry Livingston. He is The Importance of Being Ernie. That is him. That is his book. From My Three Sons to Mad Men, a Hollywood survivor tells all. Let me give you the Harrison hotlines. Would like to talk about Trayvon, the Million Hoodie March, as well as Dick Cheney's third heart transplant and the anonymous donor that might have offered that. Of course, there are a lot of other people that could use the heart transplant. And I would love you to speculate on who that donor might be. Maybe it was a wonderful, wonderful old lady, a wonderful Christian old lady who recycles. That's my hope, and I'll bet you I'm wrong. 310-737-TALK, your Harrison hotlines. 310-737-TALK. 310-737-TALK. And Ernie, quite clearly, what's going on in the world today, from when you were doing the show My Three Sons, when you were playing Ernie, when you were with William Demarest, when you were hanging out with Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz and all the other cool folks, this kind of stuff that we see on Occupy, there was nothing like that. I mean, didn't Dad go to work and make enough money he could leave mailman have a house? The milkman had a house, and their kids went to school, and that wasn't considered socialist?
It was Pleasantville. We lived in a land called Pleasantville, and it was nothing ever really occurred that although I was adopted, so that was like the one big shift into drama, that there's something, they're alluding to the fact that some children have no parents. But then once we got past that 6 episodes, we never talked about it again. But
because those issues disappear so quickly.
Nah, who cares?
You were absorbed.
I adjusted
like the
so
board.
well. Yeah, I just was like that amoeba or whatever. I just ate all the plastic in the house, and they were happy. They had me there. No, I just it was. There was no reality. I mean, that was the reality. And then, of course, when a show, I can tell you exactly what changed television was All in the Family. And then suddenly, there was divorce and depressions and abortions, and black people actually sort of lived nearby.
They still do.
Maybe even next door.
And they, in Florida, too.
Yeah.
In hoodies.
Well, yeah. No, there's no hoodies in that era. But it was,
But I had a hoodie.
I
did. I had a little cotton pullover. We didn't call them hoodies, but it had 2 strings down the side.
I had a bonnet. That was about as close to.
Now that's a little too much information.
But it was sort of an Amish thing that I was.
Nice.
I don't ever recall.
Did you churn butter too?
To know what?
Did you churn butter?
Yes, churned butter.
Awesome.
Yes, through a portal.
Yes. Nice callback. Woo.
No, I don't know. It was a funny era, and it was interesting. Like I say, I had a real. Because I kept getting that, the hypocrite label put on me. And I'm going, hey, man, I didn't write the show. It didn't start that way. Trust me, when it started, we were pretty cool. By 1968, when Vietnam and all the horrible things were happening that we were, involved in overseas, and all the things that have civil rights, it was kind of odd to go, we're not talking about any of that. That's not happening in our universe. It never did but in retrospect and in fairness to the producers now, you look back at that show, it would have just been such a total waste of time to go in that direction, to have Uncle Charlie come out of the closet, or or Ernie has an affair with an older woman, or I don't know.
That was the Brady Bunch, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes.
The father and the son.
Yeah, the father and the son, and I think Greg Brady banged Florence Henderson or something like that. But anyway, it now you look at that show, and it's a time capsule of a different reality in television, and that's all that it was. And even then, that's an era of entertainment, and it wasn't necessarily like a documentary that we were making about real life. It just was entertainment for that era, albeit it wasn't reflecting reality, but television never does.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. I mean, no matter how good the show, the hottest show on, even reality TV is as fake as a $3 bill.
The furthest thing from reality.
I did a reality TV show. It never aired, but it was called 24 Hours at Hotel Hell. And it was all scripted. I played a security guard, nonstop. I had a director in my ear telling me to go up and aggravate people and do weird things with them. And even the people that were supposedly the guests, who were supposedly the real, real people.
Sure.
Well, they were actors.
Coincidentally.
I love that. I love that. We're talking to Barry Livingston, and I had a similar experience. And Stephen Redondo, you're next, as is everyone else, at 737-TALK. That's 310-737-TALK, your Harrison hotlines. Barry Livingston, famously Ernie from My Three Sons. Also, his book is called The Importance of Being Ernie, From My Three Sons to Mad Men. A Hollywood survivor tells all. And I was hired by the Jerry Springer Show about a year ago to do an episode on the game show network called Baggage. And it's a dating show.
I didn't know this.
Yes, I have the whole thing on video here. I threaten to show it someday.
Nice.
And what it is, it's a dating game show. Yeah. And so there's the girl up there, and then there's the 3 guys.
Right.
And throughout the show, everyone opens bag number 1, and this is your personal baggage.
It's real baggage.
Yeah, it's
bring your own bag.
It's kind of your real baggage,
your own
right?
Samsonite?
But it's reality, right?
Right.
They provide the suitcase. But the event that's listed in the suitcase that the camera sees is I haven't fed my cat in 20 years or whatever. And so she deselects the guys one by one until the last one wins. And I said, but I have a boyfriend. Oh, that's okay. And we're going for the girl. I mean, this is the quintessence of lying, right? But they're paying me as an actor.
Yeah.
Right.
I said, so it's a gig. No, it's real. I said, it's real unreal. So my final bag was that I had slept with, I don't know, 50 men and 50 women or something, whatever they put on there. And she was aghast and horrified, awesome. Right? I mean, and rightfully so.
Right.
And I just thought, and there's Jerry sitting there with dollar signs rolling in the back of his head. So if anyone thinks for a second that the television set is some truth-telling device, as you've pointed out, Barry, it is a storytelling machine. As Howard Beale famously said in the movie Network with Patty Chayefsky, the brilliant writer who died way too soon.
Yeah, again.
Right?
Yeah.
That it is a boredom-killing machine. And it will tell you it's not so that you watch more of it. Mm-hmm. Fox, safe at home.
Right.
Really? So if I go outside? Yeah, that's right. That one of those guys in a hoodie is going to come and get you. Let's go to Steve in Redondo Beach. Steve, you're on Go Harrison with Harrison and Barry Livingston. Welcome.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Harrison, you make me laugh. I tried to call in last week when you were talking about Santorum. You just had me on the freaking floor, man.
He'd like to have you on the floor, too,
Or in a portal.
Yeah, I know he would, man. I'm playing hard to get. I can't get.
You're so coy.
No, look at I love my three sons, and I thought it was great. I love Fred McMurray, and I loved the whole show. But I mean, Fred McMurray had that whole kind of Greg Peck thing going. The '50s dad, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And one time I was building sets over in Universal City, and I got to meet Shirley Jones, and I'll tell you, I grew up watching The Music Man. And June Lockhart and Shirley Jones and, June Allison and all those gals were great. But I had a question about Fred McMurray.
Sure.
I heard that he was on the studio system and he got in a fight with the studio, so they decided to punish him by giving him double indemnity. And that was like the best performance of his career.
That's that's kind of that I've heard that said about a lot of actors. I heard it from Billy Wilder. Who was the writer-director of it, and he wanted...
Well, I love the show, and I just wanted to say thanks for it. I thought it was great. And the whole thing with Dr. Smith, I mean, some of the greatest guys in 50s and 60s television were closeted gay guys. They wanted to be... I loved Paul Lynde. I loved Rip Taylor. I loved all those guys.
Great actor.
Steve, there was a scene in Bewitched that I will never forget. And I didn't...
Oh, my God.
I am one of the guys who didn't see Paul Lynde that way. I know. I don't know where the hell I was on Earth, but I just thought he was Uncle Arthur.
For goodness sake.
But he came in and he sat on Samantha's couch in a flaming blue turtleneck and tight pants.
Oh,
and he said, "My feet are killing me." And all we see is a bust shot from his waist up. And suddenly there are two gunshots. We look down at his little pointy shoes, and there are two revolvers at the end of his shoes pointing at his head. Well,
oh, my God.
Anyway, it killed me at the time. I still like it.
Oh, I freaking love those guys. I mean, he used to sit there on the Hollywood squares, and he was just out of control. And I was a little kid in Michigan watching this stuff, and I didn't know all the inside politics of it. But I love the flamboyance of it. I just thought it was great. I thought it was great. Lost in Space, same thing.
All right, my friend. Hey, thank you so much, Steve. Have a great day.
Yeah,
all right, pal. Take care.
You too, bud.
Your Harrison hotlines
Bye-bye.
are 310-737-TALK, 310-737-TALK. We are talking to Barry Livingston. You know him from My Three Sons. He's grown up being on countless television shows, movies, and has written a bioepic, really, about what it's like to be a guy from L.A., grow up in this system, and not happily succumb to many of the horrors that are now the only news stories we get. Like Paris Hilton, the only thing we get is that she went in for a pudendal dye job somewhere and that they used a number 4 gauge pick, right? We don't get that she donated money to charity. Well, probably because she didn't. But anyway, you grew up in an era where I have no idea what I'm saying. My train of thought derailed all over
Dental.
I was thinking about...
You lost me on Pew Dental.
I know. I was thinking about Paris Hilton, and I was thinking about the gauge pick there, and
let's talk about areolas again.
Let's do that. Areola Huffington, for instance.
I love her. She's bosomy.
I guarantee there's a porn star by that name somewhere. I guarantee.
Well, we should have had some porn stars on My Three Sons. We had Zsa Gabor, but that's a bad segue. I mean, it had nothing to do with porn stars. But I thought she might have been one in my warped 13-year-old mind because she was such a diva, you know? I mean, and I don't know. He was weird. Sorry, that story didn't go anywhere, but that's just Jaja.
Well, I think weird works. Like, we get that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the 1960s. Let's talk about sex here for a minute, because it is relevant. Wherever there's repression, and we look at it today, for every action, there's an equal and opposing reaction. You have the banks clamping down like the Weimar Republic. So you end up with Occupy, pushing back, saying, wait a minute, you're kicking 1 million of us, 12 million of us out onto the streets. For every action, equal and opposing reaction. For that kind of repression, weren't you guys, not you necessarily Barry Livingston, although we certainly wouldn't mind hearing any of your nerd-like escapades there, but weren't people having a bit of a frolic as an artist? The way Cary Grant lived with, who was his roommate?
Diane Cannon was his wife.
No, but his roommate.
Yeah, I know he had a.
What was his name?
Something. I don't know.
Very famous.
Jonathan
Montgomery
Harris.
Clift.
Jonathan
Harris.
Montgomery Clift.
Oh.
They lived in a
Paul Lynde.
huge house in not Malibu, Bel Air.
West Hollywood.
Huge house in Bel Air, and the official story was to save money on rent.
Oh, really?
So I figure if
Wow.
I'm saving money on rent, I'm going to go spend millions on a house to save $8 in rent.
They were, I'm a Montgomery Clift, such a great actor. I loved him, but I had never heard that they were an item, that they were.
There's a book right over there in the Marilyn Monroe bookshelf, one of the bookshelves there. I know, how odd. I live in L.A. You look around, you go, my God, there's books everywhere. Books. Yep, it's true. We read here. Yeah, there's one in there called Gay Hollywood, and it's got huge black and white photos of this secret world that was then.
Well, when I did Ironside with Raymond Burr,
Nice.
and it's in the book, little anecdotes about people that I've worked with. One of them being Raymond Burr, and I thought. When I was 18, I just finished My Three Sons, and I was in a wheelchair too, playing a kid who was in a wheelchair. And he
in Ironside.
In Ironside, Raymond Burr was playing a detective who was in a wheelchair. If you've never seen it, and he kept coming up and kind of pat me on the butt. I'd do a good scene, and give me a little pat.
So he had to slide his hand under the seat of the chair.
No,
pat?
occasion we'd get out of the chair, and I thought it was a very familial kind of gesture. But I thought, well, I'd seen baseball
Avuncular.
players do that. That's a very vague. I don't know. I saw Willie Mays pat Willie McCovey's butt. I
All
didn't
the
think
Willies.
too much of it.
Any Willie in town.
It truly gave me the willies when he did it. I didn't realize till later till somebody said, well, yes, he's got a whole island in the Tahitian island full of native boys, and he's
Well.
And I said, well, I didn't know that. I thought he was being real friendly.
He was being really friendly.
He wanted to be friendlier.
He was
actually.
being very friendly.
I didn't get it.
We're going to go
I didn't
to
realize.
Kim in Costa Mesa next on our Harrison hotlines at 310-737-TALK. I want to just say that we're talking to Barry Livingston. You know him from My Three Sons. Fred McMurray played the father. William Demarest played Uncle Charlie. And you have written a book called The Importance of Being Ernie, not to be mixed up with the Oscar Wilde version.
Or Gay Hollywood.
Right, that's right. From My Three Sons to Mad Men, a Hollywood survivor tells all. I have to tell you, it's a treat because I grew up with you.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's that weird inverse relationship where I know you.
Yeah, I know.
I know you. You don't know me from nothing.
Nope.
So I see you in the grocery store. I run up and damn it, I want an hour. You have to tell me what, you have to talk to me, you have to sign this. It's like, but I just want a carrot.
Yeah, it's one of the odd.
I came for a carrot.
It's one of the odd things that every celebrity, has to deal with. And
Yeah.
you just go, people know you so well because you come. Particularly that show was 30 million people a week were watching it.
Yeah.
In an era when there was only 3 networks, and it can be wonderful. You can be welcomed. How often can you go through life and strangers are happy to see you? That's the beauty part of it. But then there are the other times, like you say, you're just standing in the bathroom taking a leak, and some guy next to you wants to shake your hand. You're going, well, give me a
He's
minute.
happy to see you.
Give me a minute. Yeah, no, I'll be with you in a
that you,
second.
Raymond Burr?
Yeah, that could be Raymond Willie or
Raymond Burr and
wanted to shake my Willie.
Up the street here, that big, huge spaceship-looking thing up in the Hollywood Hills that you can see out that window is Merv Griffin's house.
Oh, that was a party.
He threw
Party
a
Central.
pool party like nobody's business.
Imagine.
Trust me on that one.
The Wheel of Fortune.
We got a full board here, so I don't want to be too rude. Let's go next to, let's say hi to Kim in Costa Mesa. We're glad to have you on with Harrison. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Harrison. I'm so excited to speak with Ernie from My Three Sons. I used to watch him all the time. I was a little bit of an older woman at the time, but I'm so glad that he was churning butter then, even though at the time I didn't know anything about that. I'm glad he is still churning butter, even if it's through a porthole, and I, too, have learned how to churn butter and enjoy it. So anyway, I'm just really glad to hear he's thriving.
Yes, well,
and I'll keep my eyes open.
I've switched to margarine,
so and perhaps he could be at a spelling bee sometime, and he could show us how to churn butter.
Wow. Well, now where are you at now? Costa Mesa. I had no idea Costa Mesa had such wild people living there.
We do, and it's because of your show. It's because of your show. It's truly because of your show.
Don't
had
blame
nothing
it on
to
me.
do with Fred.
Yeah, no, he was great.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's a nice thing about butter. You can use it in any city, any county, anywhere.
Thank you, Kim. You're awesome. We're so glad you called in, okay?
I love how attentive our listeners are.
Yeah, they're taking notes.
Yes.
And teaching life lessons at the same time. That's what we love about
sweet.
it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
We're talking to Barry Livingston. My Three Sons, he played Ernie. His father was Fred McMurray. His uncle was William Demarest, Uncle Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's written a book called The Importance of Being Ernie, From My Three Sons to Mad Men, a Hollywood survivor tells all. Excuse me. Again, as I said, I took up smoking this morning for the first time, and I'm having
so that he can quit.
So that I can quit.
And advise others on how to do so.
Thank you,
Just
Mercy.
want to make that clear.
Thank you. That's exactly correct.
Yeah, Harrison's sacrificing himself for your health.
Others first, self second. That's right. All right, let's say hi next to DJ in L.A. You're on with Harrison. Welcome.
Hey, Harrison. Great show. Listen, Barry Livingston started to tell a story, I believe, about Billy Wilder. What Billy Wilder said about Fred McMurray and Double Indemnity. And that story never got told, however brief or long it was. Could we hear that? That's kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, where was I? Let me see.
All right, I'll take my answer off the air.
Thanks,
All right,
DJ.
Let me pick it up from where I left off. Yeah, Billy Wilder. There was an event that Jewel Gala that was in honor of Fred McMurray, and Billy Wilder was one of the speakers, and because they had a great relationship. And Billy said no. It wasn't a situation where that was one of those. The studio forced you to do it. Fred didn't think he could do it, and Billy Wilder wanted him to do it very badly. And he just thought, he wasn't the right actor for it. He didn't think he would be believable as a heavy like that, and he didn't like the morality of it. And all of those things, Billy Wilder finally said, this is the best part that you're ever going to get in your life, and you must do it. And that was really, the probably the biggest thing in his career. McMurray's was great in that, and I think it was Billy Wilder who recognized that, and because he has a decency about him,
Sure.
That's what he wanted to twist.
Yeah.
He knew that he had that kind of all-American good guy thing, but in that kind of a role, it would be real effective to have him play turn into such a cad. So it was really, Billy Wilder pursued him.
Good thing he didn't put him in a dress like Tony Curtis in Some Like It Hot.
Well,
not a good fit.
Well, it had nice legs.
Did
It would have been okay.
All right. This is important.
He had a
I'm writing
hump on
that
his
down on a
back, though. I
Post-it
don't know.
note. Harrison, with you, we have run out of time. I want to thank you so much, Barry Livingston. Your book is called The Importance of Being Ernie, From My Times... From My Times?
My Three Sons?
From My Three Sons.
Thrilling vision of things to come.
From
His
My
next
Three
project.
Sons to Mad Men.
The Life and Times of Barry.
Hollywood survivor tells all. And you have survived the show. So you got a double gold star on your fanny.
It's been great. Thank you so much.
All right, folks. Well, we'll see you next Monday, 3 to 4 Pacific time. Have a great week.
I'm putting my hoodie on, too.
That her husband could have committed the mass murders of a group comprised mainly of young children. Bales said, quote, "I have no idea what happened, but he would not. He loves children, and he would not do that," end quote. Staff Sergeant Robert Bales is accused of killing 9 children and 7 adults, one of whom was pregnant, in the pre-dawn hours of March 11th. Many observers have expressed skepticism that the lone soldier could have managed to leave his base in Kandahar province twice in one evening without being noticed, and several Afghan witnesses to the crimes report seeing multiple U.S. military assailants. For Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7, I'm Mercy Malik. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheActualMercy, and this has been your Reality Check.
For details on all these stories and more, go to INNWorldReport.net.
Smart starts now. GoHarrison.com.
What's new about Tiger Woods?
Michael Jackson. Elvis Presley.
O.J. Simpson. Abandoned baby.
Harrison. Talk show. Random. Political. Outrageous. Philosophical. Analytical. Passionate. Hidden sun.
At least 1,000 Israelis gathered to demonstrate against war with Iran on Saturday in the latest display of the citizenry's opposition to threats of a military strike. The Jerusalem Post reports that the group made their way through central Tel Aviv while chanting peace slogans, singing traditional Israeli peace songs, and other love and peace-themed tunes by the Beatles and John Lennon. Also notable were signs carried by a number of marchers expressing strong opposition to the American pro-Israel lobby AIPAC. Organizers coordinated the rally through a Facebook page entitled Israelis Against the War and stated, quote, "We will not agree to an irresponsible Israeli attack on Iran, leading to a war with an unknown end date and casualty count. The billions that this war will cost will be paid by us in health, education, housing, and in blood," end quote. Sound familiar? Some marchers also stressed that they were opposed to the presence of nuclear weapons anywhere in the region, saying, quote, "We must disarm all of the Middle East from nuclear weapons, Israel included." It's 1 minute past the hour. In horrifying local news, a woman in the San Diego area community of El Cajon has died after being brutally beaten in her own home, but apparently because she was Iraqi. Shaima Alawati was found last Wednesday in a pool of her own blood next to a handwritten note which read, quote, "Go back to your own country, you're a terrorist," end quote. The LA Times reports that Alawati was taken off life support on Saturday and died shortly thereafter. The woman's family told police that they had previously received similarly threatening anonymous correspondence, but had dismissed that first instance as a prank. The UK Guardian reports that, ironically, Alawati's husband, Al-Hamidi, works as a cultural advisor, helping U.S. soldiers prepare for deployment to the Middle East. It's 2 minutes past the hour. And finally, 2 NATO soldiers were shot dead in Afghanistan's Helmand province today in what is believed to be another retaliatory move for the massacre of 16 Afghan civilians earlier this month. Yahoo News reports that this morning shooter was dressed in an Afghan military uniform, and the NATO soldiers whose lives he claimed were reportedly British. Meanwhile, Carolyn Bales, the wife of the U.S. military staff sergeant accused in the civilian killings, appeared this morning on NBC's Today Show to express her disbelief.
Sets, roadkill cooking tips, open-minded, swordsman, bent, resolute, chocolate, bushwhacker, belt buckles, investigative, companion, fearless. Call in. Piercing the cloud of mainstream entertainment. From Los Angeles, it's The Smart Show with Harrison.
Four minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome and happy Monday to you. Happy if you're not wearing a hoodie today. I certainly recommend against that unless you want to, suffer the unfortunate problems that go along with that. Our guest, whom I will introduce in just a moment, has put his hoodie up. Unbeknownst to him, perhaps, and it's possible that he even bought a piece of clothing, this ultimate cloak of sartorial splendor, before it became so controversial. We're going to find that out in just a moment. Sit there in your hoodie and just know my right to stand my ground, even though I'm sitting, is still as confusing as it was a year ago. Harrison, with you, I want to open up the phones a little later and talk about Trayvon Martin, talk about having lived in Florida myself and having recalled the great moment that it was decided that you could walk around with a shotgun on your hip or a handgun. Excuse me. But in 7-Elevens, you were required to check them at the door. Check your handgun at the door was the sign, kind of like the Old West. But unlike the Old West, where people still had rudimentary educations and no electric chair was invented yet, it might have been slightly different. There were actual sheriffs then but it doesn't matter. This is the way it works. I was in a Starbucks this afternoon, And there was a sewer worker there because of the rains, and he was working on some of the overflow water here in West Hollywood, where we are coming to you live from Marilyn Monroe's former partner? Boy, that'd be a long list. Former apartment right now. And relevant it will be, our guest, whom I will introduce in just a moment. But this water worker was dressed in a bright yellow slicker and a hoodie. And I went up to him. I said, do you realize that according to Geraldo Rivera and the TV set, Fox